Hello, audience. Welcome. Today we have Dr. Ryan, and he will introduce himself, sir. So introduce yourself and let the audience know what you do, Dr. Ryan.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Smallars. I live down in the Virgin Islands. I have for 15 years. During the day, I'm a surgeon, ear, nose, and throat surgeon. At night, serial entrepreneur and investor. We pretty much have found our niche in really trying to help docs and medical providers and really anybody on the planet understand what investing is and what mindset that you have to be a good investor, how to stay grounded, how to make good rational decisions. And I think that pretty much transfers to all parts of our lives. I know that it does for me. And I try to practice the principles that we're banging the drum for.
Nice, nice, nice. So how long you been a doctor?
I've been a doctor for going on 25 years. I graduated medical school. Wow, that was so long ago. 2004. Does that sound right? Yeah, something like that. And yeah, so finished medical school, went to residency, and then basically Virgin Islands for the last 15 years. So I came straight out of training, came down to to paradise, and that was it.
So while you was in medical school, and I know you're an investor now. So while you was in medical school, did you learn some of the things we're going to talk about today in medical school, or how did you go about grasping some of the techniques?
Yeah, not one single bit in medical school, not one single bit in residency. And it took me till 2017 to realize that I knew absolutely nothing about finance. I knew nothing about my own personal finance. I didn't even know where I banked. My wife took care of all of that. And basically, I woke up one day, was, paddling, surfing with my friends and exercising. And I looked over and I said, you know what? I don't know anything about finance. That scares me. We're going to have kids soon. I want to make sure that I can provide for them, and I've got to figure this out. And so about 6 weeks later, I was in business school.
Nice, nice. So being in business school and by you not really picking up none of this in when you was in medical school, how did that transform your mindset?
Oh, I can tell you to the day. It was probably day 4 or 5 of business school. So the way we did it is about every quarter we would go up for a long weekend, like a Thursday night to a Tuesday morning kind of thing, and we would just cram classes, and the rest of it was online. And I distinctly remember, well, the first day I walked in and I said, man, I just do not belong here. This is like so foreign to me. I have no idea what they're talking about. And about day 4, I remember sitting there just mesmerized by this one particular professor, and the light bulb sort of went off, and like I saw flashes, and it basically was this. I said, every commercial on the entire planet is pointed at me. And my headspace is filled with, the next car or the next watch or whatever that material possession is, was, kind of consuming what it was, my whole mindset. And so people were pitching things to me to buy. And I realized that that's exactly the opposite of where I wanted to be. I wanted that headspace to be filled with trying to fix a very problem that is near and dear to my heart and try to solve it, right? So changing that mindset from consumer to investor or entrepreneur. And I think that they are very related. They're not exactly the same. But as an investor, we vote with our dollars, right?
Right.
And so it to me, the mindset is so similar. There's a lot of grit and some of those sorts of things that are kind of shifted towards the entrepreneur side as far as the investor. But there's a lot of grit that it takes to be an investor too, right? You have to stand firm in your beliefs. It's not so much sweat equity that we're talking about on that side, but it's holding strong and putting your feet in the stand, drawing a line, saying, "Hey, you cross this line, where it's going to go down."
So so Dr. Ryan, while you was in business school and you was learning, the business concepts and everything, what was your first venture to say, okay, my mindset is shifting. Now I need to go and start investing and becoming an entrepreneur. What was that? What was that like
Yeah,
moment?
so it was a shotgun approach. I threw a bunch of spaghetti on the wall and tried to see what stuck. I wouldn't advise that for your listeners out there. So maybe they can learn from my mistakes. But I can tell you one of those balls of spaghetti in particular. I was driving to work. I fly to work twice a week because I work on different islands on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and every other Friday. And I have a little time there to listen to podcasts and try to do some thinking and some of those sorts of things. The first podcast that came on, the gentleman said, we in this day and age live very complicated lives. I want you to look at your keychain and see how many keys you have, because that can determine or give you some sense of how complicated your life is. I looked over on my passenger seat. I couldn't see the seat. It was filled with keys. And so I said, yeah, I think he's right. I live a pretty complicated life, even though I live in paradise. And that's great that now I know it. You pointed out, but what do I do about it? Right? Like, what can I do? And it was literally, I think I was coming back home and going to my graduation, trying to figure out what I was going to do on the business side of my life. The very next podcast, I promise you, there had to be some serendipity in here somewhere. But the guy comes on and he goes, listen, so, commercial real estate it's a full contact sport. It's like there is nothing easy about it, and it's complicated, and there's data, and there's this, and there's that, and blah blah blah. He said, but I tell you what, if you want the least complicated out of all the asset classes in commercial real estate, it's self-storage. Everybody loves their pink flamingos, and they're never getting rid of them. And it's a concrete slab in a metal box. I was like, sold. And so I've been in self-storage ever since.
So self-storage. Oh wow. So explain that a little bit, Dr. Ryan, the self-storage.
Yeah, so a core part of my portfolio, and actually the growing business that we have, is raising money with the from physicians and medical providers to buy
Mhm.
self-storage facilities. And we have our buy box is what the buy box. What do we buy? It's really in states that like the one you're sitting in right now,
Mhm.
states that like businesses to come to, and they will, not put up walls to prevent you from, capitalism and having a thriving business. And we feel, and during COVID, it was kind of came to fruition that it was a necessary business and it was allowed to stay open because people needed their stuff, right? They needed to be able to access their things. In our minds, self storage is only getting bigger. We have this
Yes.
millennial group of folks that don't really like material things, but they also like life experiences. And what comes along with that? It's gear. You go to a college town, right? You go to the self storage place, it looks like an REI. There's life vests and bikes and kayaks and, all the gear to have those
Yes.
life experiences, right?
Yes.
And so with that, that's their pink flamingo, and they're not getting rid of them, right? And so the next
Wow.
generation will have their own thing. We live in a sort of, things society, and people don't always have a place to put their stuff. They don't have a place to
Yeah.
put their boats, their RVs, all the material possessions that get them to the places that they want to be. And so we want to provide that service, and we're going to do that in such a way where we are not only good to our patrons or the sellers of these facilities that we're buying, our investors. So I'll put it this way: we're not in commercial real estate at all. We're in the relationship. We're building relationships.
Nice. Nice. So how hard was it to get into the self-storage business? Because that is a booming business. I mean, it really is, and it's probably going to even get bigger. How
Yeah.
hard was
So it was 2017. It wasn't quite as big as it was or it is now. But I went to the internet as one would, and I typed into Google, who can teach me commercial real estate and self storage better than anybody else in the world. And it happened to be a mastermind that I went to, and I've been going. And over the last year, I stepped away for a bit, but I hope to go back. It's like-minded individuals like myself that have this mentality of, capitalism is the way of the world and self-storage provides a service, and we're all striving to provide that service in the best way possible.
Nice, nice. So once you step into the mastermind, and I guess one of the key things I want to know, would you recommend this for anybody to go into it to kind of start this type of business when it comes to self storage? Because it seems like a pretty lucrative business. So would you
Yeah.
recommend?
So here's what I would say. I would say join a team, right? You're going to lose your shirt if you go out there and try to fight it out with the people who've been around the block a few times. So what you want to do is ride the coattails, probably as a limited partner of somebody who, a team of real estate professionals that can show you the ropes. You have some skin in the game. You're a limited partner, and I can promise you 1,000% that education is going to be cheaper than mine, right? And you're going to not only make money out of the deal, learn about the business, probably meet some incredible people, and basically at the end of that deal, I would say keep stacking assets, whether it be as a limited partner or going out on your own. It's probably going to be very apparent when it's time to do that. And there's probably going to be other limited partners that are looking to do the same thing. So you're building relationships, right? You're talking to people in the industry. You're trying to figure out how to not lose money. And one of those days, another person's going to come along who you gel with and mesh with, and you're like, hey, let's buy a facility, right? Smaller, get your feet wet, and then, you're going to figure it out. Do you want to be an operator, or do you want to be on the limited side and let other people deal with the headache?
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So I can see. And so based on you doing that, and I know it really took a mindset shift for you to really shift from being a doctor to say, okay, I'm gonna be a doctor and an entrepreneur. So could you kind of talk a little bit about what type of mindset shift that kind of played on you, and what type of mindset shift would you need to do something like this?
Yeah. So this is sort of the core of what we banged the drum on. So I appreciate you asking the question. I can tell you from my standpoint, it's been a complete life-changing event. From that day forward, where I decided that I wanted my headspace filled with, solving problems instead of buying things. It's really odd that as you go down this journey, the way I see it is that the people who make that shift, they all end up in the same place. We're all listening to the same podcast. We're resonating with the same people, the messages. I will tell you this, and this may sound a little far-fetched if you haven't been down that road, but I'll give it to you anyway. You can believe whatever it is you want to believe, right? Facts are facts, but you can choose to believe whatever it is that you want to believe. If you want to believe the world is crushingly hard and just the worst place to ever be, then that's what it's going to be. The universe is going to push you in that direction. Whatever being you believe in, the just kind of the vibration of the universe. If you believe that the world is incredibly great and there's a million opportunities out there, and as long as I knock on enough doors, I'm going to open that one door that's going to lead me to the goals, the promised land of where I want to be. Most likely that's exactly what's going to happen. And so the reason why you congregate with the people who you want to be around, to me, going to the masterminds, going to business school, talking to people who've had businesses and exited for multiples, is because now you believe it, right? You believe that it's possible. In my mind, I know it's possible. I don't believe it anymore. And they become rooted in your being. And so as you sort of go down that road, like to go back to the way I thought before, would just be, I would be like, wait, what? Like, there's no possible way. Like that, the world doesn't work that way, right? And so I would say is probably the most important thing that I can portray or say to your listeners. If there's one thing you take away from this conversation, even if you don't believe it, just start thinking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to say you want to believe that inherently people are good. You know, maybe that's something like right now you think you've been harmed or there's something that's happened to you where you think that people are out to get you. Just know that there are people out there who have been successful at changing their belief system to the exact opposite. And if you told them today that the world was terrible or people were out to get them, their head would be spinning.
Yeah.
Because they're around the people who believe that, right? You're the mixture of
Mm-hmm.
the 5 people that you're around most often. And I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Dr. Ryan, you're absolutely correct. I mean, because the people you're around most of the time, you're gonna eventually, if they're good and their mindset is towards business, you're gonna shift your mindset to think like that too. But if you're around people that's not, then your mindset is usually gonna shift to think like that. So you're absolutely correct. So
Yeah.
how did you wind up finding the groups that you was a part of? Because I think that's critical too for the audience. How did you go about doing that if you want to take part in mastermind or another type of group that can actually start shifting your mindset?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a part of so many teams now that it's just kind of wild. But it it sort of happens naturally when you're in those groups, especially the
Mhm.
bigger groups. And so what I would tell people if, that first off, if they told me that, you know what, I don't have any money, I can't get into deals, I would say, look, there's two kinds of people. There's the money and then there's the sweat, right? Go be the sweat, go be the hustler, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't don't let anybody tell you that it can't be because it can. And you can do it. Don't give me an excuse that, you don't have the money to put in as an LP, right? Everybody's looking for hustlers and people that are go-getters. So that's number one. Number two is it you have to put forth the effort to get in the room, right?
Yep.
That is life. It's getting in the room, whatever room that is for you, whether it's the church or this new business that you want to be in, whatever it is. If you're outside the room, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Nothing.
That's right. That's right. That's a fact. Nothing's gonna happen except you outside the room.
Except you're outside the room, thinking that you want to be in the room, and now you're envious, and now you're depressed, and all of the bad things that come along with that, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right, Dr. Ryan. So you mentioned something just now, and I'm gonna kind of talk about this a little bit, and I think it ties to mindset. Is you mentioned church, right?
Yep.
So with that, I know you had like the F's that you mentioned of life. Can you talk a little bit about the F's of life?
Yeah, I mean, it's friends, family, faith, finance. And so there are more of them, but without these core areas, and knowing them and making plans for all of them, in my mind, your life is never going to be whole. And for me, one of the big ones that was in the red was the finance, right?
Hmm.
And so I had to deal with it. And so I knew nothing. I started from zero, and coming from being a doctor on the pedestal, let me tell you, that's a tough pill to swallow. Coming from the top, going to the bottom, and crawling your way back up. And what I found when I went there, we'll call it there, again, because I'd been there many times in my life, and I didn't really know that I was going to, want to struggle up the mountain again, is that the top of the mountain is never where you want to be. You want to be at the bottom. You want to be learning and grinding and climbing your way up of whatever mountain it is that you want to be. That's number one. Number two, life will never be in balance. All the F's will never all be, all sitting there singing Kumbaya on your shoulder. Never going to happen. They're the bouncing balls, right? And you're going around and you're making sure, like the old Harlem Globetrotters, making sure all the balls are bouncing, right? One of
Yep.
them, one of them starts, get up, getting lower. It's getting lower. The fuel's running out of the tank, right? One of them stops bouncing, and I can promise you, the one over here is going to stop bouncing. The one over here is going to stop bouncing. You're going to spiral out of control. Life will never be in balance. Just make sure that all the balls are at least bouncing, and so you can come back to them and get them bouncing higher. When this over here is, you're not in crisis over here anymore, right? You go bounce this other ball, get it. Okay, we're going to get it back up. And it's a constant and without having that 30-foot view of your life, you're never going to be able to understand why things are out of control, right? Because all the balls are bouncing at different heights, right? Maybe, I haven't been able to spend as much time with my kids or my wife or one of these other balls, but it's still bouncing. It's still there. I got my eye on it over here. This business thing, we've got a crisis, and I'm up all night, every night, trying to get it under control. But I got my eye on it over here, right? Because if it stops bouncing, no bueno.
Right. So Dr. Ryan, now you said something that I think was pretty impactful, right? You said that you rather be in the lower part of the trenches, grinding it out, right? So my question to you is this, and also audience, if whatever you think, if you leave it in the comment section, this would be great too. If you're in the trenches grinding, is it worth it? Or was it worth it?
Oh, to me, there is no other way. Like, is it worth it? Nothing else is worth it, right? If I'm not willing to go back there, to use a term that I wouldn't normally use, then there is no purpose to me. If I'm not willing to go back to where I was and come back, you ever heard the one-hit wonder? Why?
Oh, yes.
Why? Pedestal, no valley.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I've done it. I'm empowered. Things are going to come to me naturally, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to train anymore. I'm not going to practice the guitar anymore. I'm not going to write music anymore because I'm the big shot.
Yeah.
Everything's just going to be handed to me. All peak, no valley. You got the day you get to the peak, if you're not going straight back to the valley, it's over. It's done. Go sit on a beach and get a fishing pole, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You're now on the merry-go-round. You're no longer on the roller coaster.
You're right.
If you make that decision, that's great. That's your decision. It's not mine. I live on the roller coaster. I won't ever go on the merry-go-round, ever.
So you know what, Dr. Ryan, and I agree with you, because seems like when you're in the valley stages, that's where you learn the most, right? That's where you're grinding and you're learning and you're trying to figure things out so you can climb the mountaintop. You can see the mountaintop, but you're in the valley grinding, trying to get there. But you have that vision to see, like, I'm going there and I'm going to make it there. But I got to go through this valley first to learn everything I need to know so I can get a seat at the table. So when I get there, I'll be ready to be there. So I agree with you.
Dan Sullivan has a whole series of books, and one of the big premises of it is this topic right here. There are many other people that describe it, but I've never heard it in such a way that he does. And basically what he says, when you're in the valley, don't believe that you are getting to put yourself on the peak and figure out how to get back down to the valley. That's where you're going to get your answer, right? Because there's always going to be a roadblock. There's always going to be this next tree that's in the way for the climb. There's always going to be the rocks that are piling on you, the crazy fires over here, and all the disasters that come with being an entrepreneur. But if you're up here, you got gravity to come back down, and you understand, oh, you know what? That boulder over there, it's not so bad. Like, it's going to, whatever. Like, that's easy. This one over here, on the other hand, that's going to be a bear. And we're going to have to figure out how to get past that. And so basically what I'm telling you is, in the valley, you have to have the 30,000-foot view, right, of what you're trying to do. And you always have to keep that coming down from that. That's the pedestal. That's where the pedestal where you want to be, not the I'm Mr. Big Shot, and I am empowered, and that's where the egos get in the way. That's where the fall from grace happens, right?
Yes, you're right. You're right. That's what I'm hearing is humility. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Yeah. With firmness and directness. and I will throw this in because I think this topic is very related. Um, Here's how I approach business, and it all started with a journey from a book called Never Split the Difference. The FBI negotiation guy that retired and basically wrote a book on how they negotiate with hostages and terrorists, and how to get people out alive. And basically, a lot of the book is talking about how tactical empathy and how to portray empathy to the person, though you don't even necessarily have to believe that their position is right. You're not going to when you're in a hostage negotiation scenario. But when I walk into and here's another thing, everything in life is a negotiation. Every single thing, every encounter that you have, even with yourself, your thoughts are a negotiation, right? So your whole world, whether you realize it or not, is a negotiation. So when I walk into a business negotiation, the first thing I'm thinking, all right, what's on the scoreboard? What's on the scoreboard? If this person gets under my skin and they see it, they get a tick mark, right? And I keep score. And so when I walk away, if that person's screaming, yelling profanity at me, whatever the case may be, man, I'm loving it because I'm getting ticks all over the board, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that perspective, right? And you keep that late night DJ voice and you say, yeah, and you got it down to the T, man. You live the late night DJ voice. So you're winning there. So what I'm telling you is, yes, humility is absolutely important. But when you have that mindset, the humility comes along with it.
Mm.
We in business are not out for blood. We are out to win.
Mm-hmm.
That is the premise of everything to me that's worthwhile in life. Winning with your relationships with your kids, right? It's not about competing. It's not about trying to get the edge by doing something illegal in the whatever it is in a sport, right? You're doing something that you're not supposed to do. It's about being better than the other person at whatever it is you're doing, right?
Mm.
It's about win. And so the whole thing, sports and business are exactly the same. It's just mental and physical, and there's mental and physicals both. But to me, they're flipped, right? The way you have to think about that. But if you ever notice the people who win championship after championship after championship, what are they doing? They're getting to the pedestal, and then the very next day, they're going to the valley.
Yep.
And the second they stay on the pedestal, guess what happens? No more championships.
Yep. Because somebody gonna knock them off every time.
Every time. And guess what? The next time, the cost is higher to get to the top.
Yep. You're absolutely correct. Yep. Because I think, and this is the biggest thing, humility and your character. With those two things, because you still, with the humility, you got to have character when you're in that valley, because the valley going to build the character.
Absolutely.
It's going to build that character. And with that character and the humility and your like steady trying to learn and succeed, it's going to drive you to the top. So
it also brings consistency, right? I mean, my teams, they know, hey, listen, I don't claim to be the nicest guy on the planet. Like, I don't want to be, right? I want to be hard as nails, and I want to win at all costs, except for losing my credibility, because my word is what I have, right? If my team comes to me, they know that I am not acting out of spite or anything other than what's best for the business, what's best for the firm, what's best for them as a whole, and what's best for me as the person, whatever role I'm playing in that business. There's no emotion when it comes to that. I mean, there is emotion because it's being a human being, but there's no emotion to try to go around anything. There's nothing being swept under the rug. Like, you want to come to me and you want the sugar-coated stuff, like, I'm probably the wrong person, right? Like, what you're going to get from me is exactly, well, let me put it this way. I try to portray the same thing, that if anybody would come to me and ask me the same thing, they would get the same exact answer.
Right.
Consistency, right? So with that, when my teams are out there making decisions on the firm's behalf, which sort of me behind the curtain a little bit, they know what I would say. If I say different things on a different day, they have no idea, like when they have to make those decisions, what decisions to make.
Yes, and I think that's key too. Yeah, you got to be consistent. You're right, and with that, character, humility, consistency comes success, and that's the key of making money, right? You have to, if you're gonna make money, you got to have those characteristics what you just described to make the money, and that's what we all about, making money, making that income where you can live the type of life that you want to live. Change the way you're paid, change your life, right? And so,
And it all starts with the mindset. I'm convinced. Listen, you're talking to the guy that changes his beliefs into whatever that he wants them to be. So maybe take it with a grain of salt. I don't know. But I
yeah,
truly 1000% believe that you can't do any of this without a change in mindset. The world is not out against you. Everything that happens to you, you have to take responsibility for, right?
right,
There's no, even if it's true that the world is out to get you and it's somebody else's fault, it doesn't help you one bit to think that,
right,
right? Own it,
right,
because probably your biggest failures are what are going to push you to the top of whatever industry it is, because you've been at the bottom, you failed. Listen, I've made thousands, millions of mistakes. There's no possible way I could do what I do without having made them. It's usually the things that you have failed at that allow you to teach other people not to do that.
yep,
Right?
you're correct. Yep, that's true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So, with that mindset shift, can that mindset shift also help you succeed in other areas?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I take my skill sets from being a doctor and I apply them to business every day. Listen, I I trained at the busiest, or it was at the time, I don't know about now, the busiest trauma hospital in the world. Like we had facial trauma, car wrecks, all the stuff. If I wasn't able, and it was leadership by fire, is what I call it. If I wasn't able to command that room, somebody was going to die, right? Every
Mm,
day. So you figure it out, right? And so if you're able to command an operating room, it's pretty easy to think that you can command a conference room,
mm,
right? And
absolutely.
it's not about yelling. It's not about using profanity. It's about the late night DJ voice and saying, I need the room completely silent because there's this that has to happen by end of business today. And if we don't do that, we're going to have very severe repercussions. And so can the next person please get up there and present, right? What gets your attention more? Me doing that and me having to say it a couple of times? And I'll lean over and I'll be like, hey, listen, can you tell the room that I need complete silence right now because this has to happen today? And the room just goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely 1000%. Skill sets transfer. What you learn, raising your kids, being a kid, getting spanked, it all means something, right?
Right, right, right. I totally agree. I mean, because when you're in a meeting or whatever the case may be, when you have that calm voice and you kind of, it really calms everybody else down for one, because it could be chaotic. And with the calm voice, it calms everybody else down, and then it kind of helps you get refocused on what you need to get done. So, Dr. Ryan, this my last question here. What nugget would you leave for the audience based on mindset and how to go about making additional money based on your mindset?
That's
What
easy. Start. Period.
nice.
End of statement. We all like to go to the beach and put our feet 2 inches away from the water. Like that's comfortable, right? We all,
Mhm,
get the warm sunshine on us, right? There's sharks in the water. It's scary out there.
mhm.
What's going to happen if you don't ever put your feet in the water, right?
Nothing.
You're nothing. You're never going to get there. Learn to fail fast, fail forward, get it out of the way, man. First time you hire a consultant, they're not going to be the right person. Might as well go ahead and hire them. Lose some money, right? You're going to be terrible at it. We all were.
Yeah, you're right about that. We all lose money every now and then, so you don't want to, but
Get in the water.
yeah, we got to get in. But Dr. Ryan, sir, thank you for joining Bartell's Money Talk. This has really been an engaging conversation, providing insight on mindset change. You change your mindset, you can change your life. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Audience, if you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time on Bartelle's Money Talk, we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, Dr. Ryan.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.